You're listening to Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss Spirit podcast with Ben Garrett.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Hello again, friends, and welcome inside the RiverLand Roofing studios, well, at least where I'm sitting. There's the house up top, RiverLand Roofing, for all your roofing needs. It's riverlandroofing.com, 662-644-4297, the number to text or call for all your roofing needs. RiverLand Roofing, sponsoring Talk of Champions on this Monday, December 16th, 2024. And since it's portal season, every Monday since portal season really kicked off, I've had my man, Zach Berry. We both write and work together covering the Ole Miss Rebels at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com. An affiliate of On3, you can get all of our coverage of the portal, other recruiting matters, football team, Gator Bowl practices, which opened on Saturday at the Ole Miss Spirit for $1, omspirit.com. But every Monday in transfer season, I've had my man, Zach Berry, who covers recruiting predominantly for us at the Ole Miss Spirit, to come on and we recap what has happened, what is coming, making predictions on the portal, which is just, Zach, going absolutely nuts right now, popping off. What's up? How you doing?
I'm good. It was a good weekend for Ole Miss. We talked about it last week. I had the house to myself. Wife and kids were gone, but wasn't very relaxing. Stayed busy. So, but it was good. 6 commits last week. Really got things kicked off in a big way. 5-star Deshaun Womack, and then just kept it rolling all the way through Saturday. So I expect another busy week here. I'm sure we'll get into who is in town and kind of who is next on the docket, kind of who could be the next portal commit.
Well, first, let's talk about the needs checklist, what Ole Miss went into the portal season needing to address and how they've addressed it so far. Give me some grading for edge with Princewell, Umanmielen, and Deshaun Womack, both in the fold, now replacing Princely, Princewell's older brother, and Jared Ivey and others who have left. I would give that obviously a very high grade, but I'm curious as to what you would grade it and other areas where Ole Miss has addressed needs, though we acknowledge they are nowhere near done.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, I think it's a fantastic start. You bring in 2 guys that have played Power 4 football and have a lot of experience. I know that both Princewell and Deshaun Womack don't really have the CV that jumps off the page at you yet, but it's all about fit and all about the intrigue and the upside. I think both were highly recruited guys coming out of high school, highly ranked. Womack really had a huge jump right before he signed with LSU, 5-star, and never really found his footing at LSU. He was a guy that didn't play a ton, but when he was in there, he was effective, created a lot of pressure, and was someone that could really impact a game. And same with Umanmielen. Kind of played a little bit everywhere at Nebraska. They played him kind of as an outside linebacker. They put him, not really a hand in the dirt, but the 2-point stance guy off the edge. But I think they're going to pair nicely with the sophomore group Ole Miss has coming back. I think we talk about that a lot, but the staff is really excited for that class, that 2024 class, or excuse me, 23 class. The Cam Franklins, the William Eccles. I guess that was the 24 class, but yeah, they'll be in their second year in college. Math is hard. But yeah, those guys, Cam Beavers, the Jam Browns, those guys played a lot of football this year, whether it was mop-up duty or just coming in and giving the starters a blow. I think pairing those guys that have been in the system for a year, they've been in that weight room, they've changed their bodies a little bit, they've gotten, shed a little bit of that puppy weight off out of high school. And, you add in 2 guys that have played a lot of college football and are going to hit the ground running. So, yeah, to kick things off at edge, I think I'd give that probably a B+, A-. Again, it's not like a lot of proven statistics. It's not a lot on the page for you. But, again, it's the upside. And you look at what Randall Joyner and Pete Golding were able to get from Princely, who there were questions about his motor, there were questions about his desire and his heart and effort and all that. No questions about that anymore. He put all that to bed this season. So guys like him and Walter Nolan that either had injuries or there were concerns about effort or whatever. They got every ounce of talent and production out of them this season.
No doubt about it. And I first want to say, as we really get rolling here on Talk of Champions, brought to you by RiverLand Roofing, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On 3, $1 for all this coverage. We talk and write about it all day, every day. Possibilities emerging, visitors on their way, all these things. I need to first say that obviously all of these grades are incomplete because you're just in the middle of this, if not the first major leg of a 4-tiered portal kind of window system, to where you're seeing guys have to get in because the next one doesn't open up until April 15th, like the backup quarterback at Penn State. In a playoff opportunity has to go ahead and get in the portal because he doesn't know what his options would be in the spring. It's a messed up system. Lane Kiffin has said it over and over again. It is sloppy, but as far as Ole Miss, it's the perfect anecdote to the disappointment that was a 9-3 season, which should never be disappointing because 9-3 historically is great for Ole Miss, but because of what the expectations were coming into the year, they fully intended on being a playoff team, and the fact that they weren't is obviously a disappointment. But the calendar doesn't hurt Ole Miss this year, but you definitely don't want to see this next year. Like Micah Pettis is in the portal. He was all but dismissed after the end of the year. Ole Miss will have a new starting right tackle, which will then be protecting the blind side of a left-handed Austin Simmons. Offensive line is another area that, again, incomplete, but I'm with you. B+, A- so far on the work with the defensive line. Deshaun Womack and Prince Will didn't have the productivity on their ledgers that Princely Umanmielen did, that even a Chris Hardy from Jacksonville State did, even though Chris Hardy didn't do all that much for Ole Miss last year. Point is that they've addressed that need in a very significant way to start. Wide receiver, it's a little bit different. What's your grade so far for them?
Yeah, again, it's an incomplete grade right now because you're still waiting on some decisions from some guys. Real quick, I will say on offensive line, I'd probably give that a solid, just a good flat B. Patrick Kudus dealt with some injuries, but again, he got that rubber stamp from Sam Pittman as a capable offensive lineman. When he was healthy, he was very good. And position versatility, too. He played a lot, played everywhere, all over the line. And I've even heard some scouts say he could slide in and play center. So he gives you a lot of options there. And then P.J. Wilkins doesn't get talked about enough, but you can't teach size. It's not like you got a bunch of, 6'6", 350-pound guys walking around that can move. So he's another piece to add to that room that really struggled to run the football in 2024. So they're trying to add some beef and some experience that can come in and help out this room in a big way. Wide receiver, it's funny you mentioned wide receiver. They haven't received a commitment yet, but Luke Haas from Arkansas, I think he's kind of a tight end X type dude where he's a little bit smaller, a little bit leaner than Daquan Wright. But man, you put those two guys on the field at the same time, you're going to have people in hell because they're matchup nightmares. Wright's probably the more physical guy. Haas is more of a get downfield and slip behind the defense and make some big plays. He did that a lot at Arkansas. And, right before the clavicle injury, he was having a hell of a freshman year or sophomore year, excuse me. So I think he's a really dynamic tight end that is someone that Lane Kiffin has utilized in the past. You think about Harrison Bryant at FAU and O.J. Howard at Alabama. Kenny Yeboah when he was first at Ole Miss, a guy that was really athletic. I think that's a piece that doesn't get. I think everybody has the laughs and they do the AI images of Ole Miss and Arkansas, and it's funny, but I mean these are really good additions. You asked about wide receiver. The two guys up top are Eric Singleton Jr. and Dane Key. Eric Singleton Jr. is the number 1 overall prospect in the portal, the number 1 receiver. and Key is the number 4 wide receiver and number 8 overall prospect. Both had their visits, multi-day visits, came in. From everything that I've heard, Lane Kiffin and the staff did a really nice job in the one-on-one, talking with them and their families. I think right now, Ole Miss is, if I was an Ole Miss fan, I'd be cautiously optimistic for both, to be honest. I've had several people tell me that, like Dane Key, I think Ole Miss really kind of caught him off guard a little bit and really impressed him. I mentioned his girlfriend goes to Georgia. That formula is typically a good hit rate, as we saw Micah Hudson on Sunday announced for Texas A&M. He was at Texas Tech. Guess where Micah Hudson's girlfriend goes to school? So
guess where Patrick Kudis's girlfriend goes? To Ole Miss.
Yeah. So again, Dane Key is more than capable of playing football at Ole Miss and still dating his girl that goes to Georgia. But yeah, I think Ole Miss has a plan. They have to replace a ton of production with Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins. So look, there's a lot of receptions to be had if you pick Ole Miss right now. You bring back Caden Lee, who is dynamic as hell. I think that he probably got snubbed for some freshman All-SEC consideration. I think he was second on the team in reception. So you bring him back. If you can add 2 pieces like Singleton and Key to go along with him in that room, you're really cooking with some gas. But yeah, Singleton, he's in Miami right now. Supposed to be in Texas at some point today. Again, these are all scheduled visits. They're not, locked in stone or anything. So he could just choose to not go to Texas. He could still show up. Most of these guys, from people that I've talked to, want to have these decisions done before Christmas. The window closes in 12 days. They want to go ahead and get this knocked out and try to get on campus in January so they can get in that weight room, start to get acclimated to the new school, get in the program, learn the offense, all that. I think that's probably what the plan is for both Key and Singleton. But Dane Key, it's Georgia or Ole Miss. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. And then Eric Singleton, it was interesting. On three's Rusty Mansell that does a hell of a job covering Georgia. He's done it for seems like 50 years. He's one of the OGs in the industry. He said that Singleton wasn't going to go back to Athens. Just said that they're just kind of going their separate ways. He is a Georgia guy. So as Rusty said, sometimes guys just don't want to go play for Georgia. So he's at Miami, and then he's got Texas. So we'll see. I would probably say it's those 3 schools, Ole Miss, Texas, and Miami. And then, we'll see what other receivers get in the portal, because these guys are starting to make decisions. Real quick, I want to mention it before I forget, Ben. I had a coach tell me, and I'm trying to confirm it, I believe college football playoff players, guys that are on college football playoff teams, get an exemption for being able to get in after the window. You saw, on Sunday, Penn State's backup, Pribula, got in. His first name is escaping me, but he was kind of a gadget. Bo Pribula. Was kind of a gadget guy. He would come in and add a different element to that offense. He got in the portal last night and had a bunch of people like, man, he's quitting on his team, and what the hell? This window is ruining it for these kids. Yeah, I mean, people said that it was a tough decision for him. He didn't want to do it, but whether or not you get an exemption, he's wanting to take visits, and he's wanting to get into a program so he can start competing to be a starter. So on one hand, it sucks because you want to play with your guys and try to make a run at the national title. But on the other hand, you got to do what's best for you. So I know some people hate that and say it's all about the individual. And, look, it kind of is at this point with guys in the portal, where you got to take care of number one. So I'll keep trying to figure it. I'll try to confirm that about the exemption with the portal. But yeah, for everybody else, it's December 16th. It closes on the 28th. So after that, it's not until the spring. So these guys are wanting to get in, take visits, and get this thing rolling.
Yeah, they're working within the framework that is allowed to them. let's not attack the players. Let's attack the framework of which they're having to kind of navigate here. Because I think
hate the game.
yeah, I think the solution would be pretty simple. I like that the new high school signing period is December, whatever it is, the first Wednesday in December. We all kind of agreed that the February signing period, as fun as it was as an event, as a college football holiday, became quite antiquated, especially in regards to how recruitments in the SEC went late in process. So why not just make the window open up on January 1, January 2, or whenever the season ends, let it run for a month, and then you can still have the 3-week window in the spring. But the NCAA doesn't care about that. They don't care about anything but themselves and saying, see, I told you so. They just want to make it as chaotic as possible because they would rather create chaos than create solutions. So they work within the framework that they're allowed. But I would agree with you in regards to wide receiver recruiting. Obviously, it's incomplete. You can't put a grade on it. But I think they're at least going to go 1 for 2 with Singleton and Key. I think they're going to get at least one of those two guys. I don't know which one. Yesterday, I thought it was Dane Key. Today, I don't know who it might be of the two. But it's not like it's going to stop there for them. Whoever it is, if they get both of them, which is very much a possibility. I don't want to dismiss that. It's just the latest intel I got was probably split that one. But if they do split that one, or if they get both of them, who are the other targets? Because wide receiver is one of those positions where, yeah, when they get some guys in the boat, they're still going to be pursuing high-end guys to bring in. Sheldon Sampson Jr. from LSU was a player I'd heard some on, but then heard that Ole Miss had kind of cooled or backed off a little bit because they were other options. Doesn't have a lot of proven production at LSU, but now a teammate is Sean Walmack. He visited with him or was going to visit with him. Who are some other names wide receiver wise once one or both of them or none of them, either of them commits Singleton and Key that Ole Miss could be going after? Because Berrien Brown was an obvious when he's committed to LSU. And I think Berrien Brown would happen. There's a number of things, not the least of which with a lot of these decisions Ole Miss is having to make because you have a cap number. This is very much like the NFL. You have a cap number. It's why you haven't seen a lot of movement with Jaheim Otis, quite frankly. His number was so high, and you've got to allocate for certain spots. And, talk to him, but the ask too high, you got to determine that or weigh that against the evaluation, your own personal evaluation, and then make moves to stay under or to stay within your cap structure. So who are some other wide receiver candidates for Ole Miss, do you think?
Yeah, so I mentioned the two up top at the, I guess, the wish list, if you will. But that's not it. Ole Miss hosted CJ Daniels and Deshaun Stribling. Daniels from LSU was at Liberty before LSU, was a highly productive wideout at Liberty, put up big numbers, and then got to LSU. And, I wouldn't say struggled, just didn't do a lot. And LSU's offense was really up and down all season. There were weeks when Nussmeier looked really good, and there were weeks where he looked like he had never played quarterback before. Stribling was on campus Sunday, 6'2", 195 from Oklahoma State. You're going to see these boxes being checked when guys commit or don't, and then Ole Miss is going to move pretty quickly. So Stribling's a 4-star guy, kind of fits the mold that Dane Key does, right? Big, physical, big yak guy. He was really good after the catch for Oklahoma State. He was on a bad offense, a really bad team, and averaged about 17 yards per reception. So he made a lot of big plays with some pretty mediocre to bad quarterback play. So he was able to do a lot of stuff in spite of what he had to work with. And then, CJ Daniels, honestly, Ben, I think it might just be it's Eric Singleton or CJ Daniels, and then it's Dane Key or Deshaun Stribling. I think Caleb Odom would be a guy that is taken no matter what. I think that it's no secret that Ole Miss is very high on him. I think Ole Miss is the favorite. He's scheduled to visit this weekend. It's pretty cut and dry, right? He committed to Joe Cox when he was on staff at Alabama. Joe Cox is now at Ole Miss. It was all Ole Miss until Nick Saban really pushed the envelope, and he ended up signing with Alabama. Then Saban leaves, a week or two after that. Don't think Caleb Odom was very happy about that, and got in the portal after the regular season. So that is someone we don't need to forget. He is visiting this weekend, and I think Ole Miss has a hell of a shot at him. 6'4", 220, a really dynamic player. He went out to Colorado to hang out with his ex-high school teammate, Juju Lewis, who just signed with Colorado. I know a lot of antennas went up after that, and people were like, "Oh no, like he might go out to Boulder and end up staying." But I think he's going to see it through and check out Ole Miss. And maybe I don't think it's too crazy to say that Ole Miss could get Caleb Odom and then 2 of the other 4 that they're after.
Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
This is Cali. With C Spire's blazing fast nationwide 5G network, she's got her fans in the palm of her hands. Live streaming her Mississippi Blues from her phone wherever she is, to out there wherever they are. Right now, get the latest 5G phone on us. Only at C Spire, customer inspired.
Caleb Odom is the one I was kind of leading this conversation into the visit coming up this weekend. He's one that's been a target that Zach and I have talked about even before he got into the portal. We'd heard rumblings that he was going to get in the portal, and if he did, Ole Miss would be a leading option for him. Nothing has changed in that regard, but you do have to get him on campus. So getting him on campus, that could move quickly if we've seen how Ole Miss has worked before with guys like that who they were early favorites for. And while it maybe takes a little bit longer because the portal is a constant moving target, they're getting him in for a visit, and that could move pretty quickly, and that would help address part of the need that they have with Trey Harris as like a big receiver. Caleb Odom's very much in that way, or he could still play tight end, but Luke Haas kind of solves that for them. So for me, the grading there is more theoretical than it is actual literal what's actually in their boat right now. And I would still give it a very solid B because Luke Haas alone opens up your offense so much, like you talked about. And I think that while Daquan Wright is a great starting point, Luke Haas, his upside and what he could be, and you're getting proven as well, it checks all the boxes for what you're looking for a number 2 tight end, because Caden Prieskorn banged up all year, lack of usage. I mean, similar questions with him as with Ulysses Bentley about his usage, what went wrong with him. But a lot of, Caden, when he came in, yes, he was really good at Memphis, but this is converted quarterback to tight end, former walk-on. Luke Haas was a highly recruited kid. He's always been upside. He's proven it as well. And there's still some, I think, upside to unlock as well. So that's where on its face by itself, and assuming that they do potentially split one of Singleton and Key, get Odom, yeah, that's going to go up into the A range. But if you look at what Ole Miss has done so far, early on in this portal cycle, they've gone after defensive linemen, wide receivers, and offensive linemen more than anything else. Linebacker is now obviously a need again. Keanu Cott, he committed to Vanderbilt. There was some thought that Chris Paul, a real conversation was being had. Ole Miss worked hard. I've been saying that on this podcast for weeks. Ole Miss was working to bring Chris Paul back, but it was going to be really hard because he had a second-round draft grade. And when you're that close, you got to strike while the iron's hot. He's 22. And sure enough, while Ole Miss offered a competitive number to keep him, retain him, the NFL draft is where he's headed. So linebacker candidates is one that I think a lot of Ole Miss fans are most interested in now, specifically because they know that, unfortunately, Chris Paul won't be a part of this next year. But congrats to him. What an incredible one-year run with Ole Miss. Jalen Braxton, the cornerback, his former teammate at Arkansas, has committed, signed with Ole Miss, will replace Trey Amos. Ideally, theoretically, step in and start immediately, a plug-and-play all-league caliber player like Trey Amos was. They've got the Michigan State cornerback in for a visit. Cornerback I want to touch on in just a second, but linebacker, what's kind of the thought process in your mind right now where Ole Miss is going or what Ole Miss is looking at as far as linebacker candidates, knowing that one that was pretty obvious, Keanu Cott, is now off the board?
Yeah, they hosted Jaden Yates last week, Marshall guy, highly productive. he's getting some offers now. He's kind of taking it slow and seeing who all is interested, and then going to try to schedule some more visits. Outside of him, I would say Andrew Jones, linebacker from Grambling State. That guy, he keeps telling me that Ole Miss is interested. They're having conversations. They're trying to figure out when he's going to visit. So he's communicating with me, and he says that Ole Miss is communicating with him. So whenever he does schedule that visit, we will let you know. Darian Gullett is supposed to visit this week. Guy from Texas. Crazy athletic dude. Played both ways in high school, was basically an H-back tight end and put up, I believe, over 1,000 yards receiving as a junior in high school. He had a injury as a senior and missed his entire senior year, but Texas still signed him. Sark and that staff loved him enough. The evaluation as a junior was good enough to give him a scholarship. So I wouldn't have too much pause about the injury because it was a couple years ago. But he will visit this week. Again, very, very athletic guy, 6'2", 6'3", 220, 225. Could potentially be a 3-4 outside linebacker, a guy that could help you off the edge. But yeah, Ole Miss desperately needs to get a game changer at linebacker now that Paul has confirmed that he will forego his final year and head to the NFL draft. So you got Suntarine Perkins, you got TJ Daughtery, but I do think you need to add at least one game changer that can come in and provide a spark and an instant impact in Pete Golding's linebacker room.
Suntarine Perkins, of course, got backdoored by a number of different schools trying to tamper with him to get him to leave Ole Miss, get in the portal with a huge number. He was out there practicing with Ole Miss for the Gator Bowl. First practice was on Saturday. So was Walter Nolan. There was some question about whether or not he was going to opt out or not. He's a one-and-done guy. Obviously, Ole Miss would love to welcome back Walter Nolan, but that's a first-round pick, and he's headed out the door far more likely than not. So I thought that was a really incredible thing to see. Going out, looking out there, Trey Amos is playing. We knew that was coming, but these are guys that signed on for a title chase, and they're having to play in the Gator Bowl in the postseason, which isn't obviously the title chase, and yet they're finishing what they started, and they should be commended for that, I think. And I think that just needs to be recognized, right? Because they've played – they balled out. All these guys, they did what they came to do. Trey Amos was everything he was supposed to be. Same thing with even a TJ Daughtery who came in from Clemson. And these are now names that will move on and be Rebels forever and be replaced with new transfers that will try to do the same thing that this group unfortunately fell one game short of doing. Jalen Braxton already makes the cornerback haul easily in the safe B range, but I think they're going to do more. Tell me about this Michigan State cornerback.
Yeah, Charles Brantley came back from injury this year, was really productive for Michigan State. He is very explosive defensive back. He's really good in the open field too, a guy that can really force a turnover and then can just turn into a return guy and really create some plays there. But battled some injuries during his time in East Lansing, but someone that was really good for the Spartans when he was healthy. So an experienced guy, someone that can come in and kind of be like a Trey Amos, someone that's been there, done that. 6 foot 170. He did go to Venice High School in Florida, which is where Winston Watkins Jr. went. So there's probably a little bit of familiarity there. But yeah, he was a guy that played at Michigan State for 4 years, 103 total tackles, 18 pass breakups. He had a sack and 5 interceptions. His best year was 2024, where he had 3 picks, 7 pass breakups, 27 tackles. He was really good. I remember watching the game against Oregon. Oregon dominated Michigan State, but he was really good in coverage, had an interception, 9 tackles. So playing against the best of the best there was really impressive. So he's someone that Ole Miss would like to bring in and lock down quickly. But yeah, a versatile guy that I think could play on that island and really cut off half the field.
Now, I was looking, Walter Nolan, as we were recording, Yeah, he's announced that he's going pro.
Yeah, declared to the draft.
He declared to the draft. Also, Billy and Body, our co-worker at the Ole Miss Spirit, OMSpirit.com, affiliate of On3. Ole Miss is hosting a pair of ACC transfer DBs on Monday. Ole Miss is hoping to reel in an all-conference secondary edition. Tell me about them.
Yeah, so this week we've got, I mentioned Dejon Stribling, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State. He wraps up his visit today. Brantley's in town today. We'll leave tomorrow. And then Mose Phillips and Mansour Delaney, both from Virginia Tech, arrive today, and we'll head out tomorrow. Mose Phillips, Nashville guy, 6'2", 185. And then Mansour Delaney is from Maryland, went to Archbishop Spalding. So both over 6'1", 6'2", guys that were in the 22 and 23 class respectively. So been in college, played a little bit. But yeah, I think you can see the trend here where Ole Miss is trying to get experience, but with some of these guys, these targets, they're multi-year guys, which I think is important. Where you're not trying to get the 1-year rentals, you're trying to get guys that will hang around, like the Jared Ivies, the JJ Pegues, the Jordan Watkins, the Trey Harrises, those the John Saunders, those dudes that came in and played multiple years. So Delaney went to LSU, 146 total tackles. So a guy that is not shy when it comes to run support. He's got 6 career interceptions. He played 3 seasons for the Hokies, a third-team All-ACC guy. And then with Phillips, played in 25 games with Virginia Tech. He had 92 tackles and 3 pass breakups and a pick. So had a good sophomore season, 65 tackles. He had a forced fumble, multiple forced fumbles. And then, he was third, tied for third on the team in tackles. So both of those dudes are NFL caliber guys who can cover, but they can also come up and make plays at the line of scrimmage. So not just looking for guys to make plays one-on-one. You got to have guys that can tackle. You got to do it all. So again, I like the strategy for Ole Miss this cycle where, again, multi-year transfers where you can build in 25 and build towards 2026. So that's key. Real quick, I was going to say the other guys. I'm sure we'll get to him because he's a stud, but Justice Haynes, the running back from Alabama, he will arrive tomorrow. And then Caleb Odom will at least per our very own Jake Thompson, he spoke with sources. Caleb Odom has, it looks like, has bumped up his OV to tomorrow. And then Darian Gullett.
Better.
Yeah, Darian Gullett is on Wednesday, the linebacker from Texas. So another jam-packed week for Ole Miss.
Love it. I love it. And you kind of took it right where I was going, man. Running back. I didn't want to save the best for last, but that's the number one question we get. What about running back? Because obviously that's what held Ole Miss back. Probably what cost Ole Miss at least one win is its lack of an ability to run consistently. Ahmad Hardy, the transfer from ULM, has obviously been a huge target, a former Mississippi kid. He's already visited, but a big one got into the portal. You just mentioned him. Now he's coming on campus. What's the rundown as we get out of here for Ole Miss's running back pursuits in the portal? Because we're not going to talk about quarterbacks. It's Austin Simmons, and they're kind of waiting for it to all flesh out. The numbers for quarterbacks are insane. Jackson Arnold spurning Mississippi State for Auburn is just hilarious. But other than that, there's nothing as far as Ole Miss that I think that's pressing for quarterbacks. Yes, they're talking to quarterbacks. They've even considered bringing in someone for visits. There's a lot out there in terms of what could happen, but I think that's the most back burner issue because they love Austin Simmons, and don't forget they love AJ Maddox as well. So let's talk about those running backs. Set the board for me.
Yeah, Justice Haynes announced he was entering the portal Friday. I reached out to a source, and all that I was told was we're working on it. So Ole Miss obviously likes Haynes. He will be in town this week. I think that I know there's a lot of chatter on the board about, Ahmad Hardy was more productive. He's got more yards. Look, Justice Haynes was splitting carries with guys when he was in Tuscaloosa, and then obviously Jalen Milroe was a huge part of that run game and ran the ball a lot. But this guy is elite. Still ran for 448 yards and 7 touchdowns, so it wasn't like he just didn't do anything. But this is a guy that played high-level high school football in Georgia at Buford and almost ran for 8,000 yards and 95 touchdowns. So highly productive guy. Was an All-American Bowl guy out of high school. He's got it in his DNA too. His dad, Veron Haynes, played at Georgia and then played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is someone that everybody is going to want. He is set to visit Ole Miss. You've got Ohio State in the mix. You've got South Carolina, Florida, Michigan's kicking the tires a little bit. So it's a race to try to get him on campus and to get him locked down. But yeah, obviously there's familiarity with not only Pete Golding and all of that and recruiting him and Kevin Smith recruiting him and Lane Kiffin recruiting him, but he's from Buford, and Ole Miss signed Hayden Bradley from Buford. You've got Reese McIntyre that played at Buford, that played at Ole Miss. So there's a lot of Georgia flavor on this Ole Miss roster that a lot of guys are talking to Justice and trying to get him to come to the SIP and all of that. So Ole Miss will get a crack at him, and we'll try to go ahead and nail that down. I mentioned Ahmad Hardy. I believe he is down to Ole Miss in Kentucky. Ole Miss crushed the visit. He loved it. He told Steve Wiltfong, like, hey, they need a running back, and I want to come in and play. If you pin me down and ask me, I think he's going to Kentucky to kind of weigh his options and to have something to compare it to. Loved Ole Miss. Hey, let's go check out this other SEC program and see what it's like and see what kind of NIL package they can offer me. Two kind of wild cards that were thrown in. Our very own Billy and Body reported over the weekend Ole Miss is also talking to 2 JUCO guys, and Wayman Jordan and Trey Hall. Wayman Jordan played at Hutchinson in Kansas, and Trey Hall played at Mississippi Gulf Coast. 2 guys that were highly productive in junior college and would fit right in with Ole Miss trying to get – I think Ole Miss is going to try to get multiple running backs.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know what you got.
2 to 3 is what I was told, and so far they have 0, but you look at the numbers, I think we're trending toward 3 here.
Yeah, I mean, Diggs is slated to come back, but he's coming off 2 knee surgeries, so you don't really know what you got. And then, look, nobody's been banging the Chicago Mills Knight drum harder than me. I've been on him since 2023 when I saw him in person for the first time. I think he's going to be a monster, but he's a true freshman. It's a lot to ask. I mean, I think he could have a Quinshawn Judkins type impact for this team next year. I think he's that good. But if you can add somebody like Justice Haynes or Ahmad Hardy or somebody like a Wayman Jordan or Trey Hall that have played, post high school ball and played a lot, you got to do it. So they're going to add more than one. It's not going to be all right, we got Justice Haynes, we're done. No, they're going to try to get more guys because we know how they like to rotate, and you got to keep guys fresh. And you're just one play away from losing somebody. So you got to have that depth. And Ole Miss is really, really thin at running back right now. And I know Dominique Thomas and Matt Jones are still there, and it's no slight to them, but you got to get some Power 4 college football playoff type dudes, and that's not a knock on them, but like you need more guys, because as we saw this year with whatever the hell was going on with Ulysses Bentley and then Henry Parrish, out for the year, he gets injured. Like, you got to have bodies, you got to have dudes.
And upside to play too. There's some upside to lead the room. The only upside for the room this year was, first of all, well, Ulysses Bentley became about upside because you just never saw him. But really going into the year, the only true upside, because you knew what you had with Ulysses Bentley and Henry Parrish, was what could Logan Diggs be? And again, Logan Diggs is coming off of 2 ACL injuries. He didn't play at all this year. Yes, in theory, a great option potentially, but that can't be all that you're relying on as far as a lottery ticket, right? They're going to buy multiple lottery tickets in this portal cycle. I think it's one or the other with Ahmad Hardy or Justice Hayes. Could be completely wrong there, but I do think it's one or the other. And then obviously you fill it out with Chicago Mills Knight and a JUCO player. It's balancing it out with a plethora of options, but not cast-offs from other schools just to fill out a room, if that makes sense, because that's what Rashad Amos and even a Dominic Thomas, not to knock him because he did some really good things for Ole Miss later in the year. That's what they were. They just didn't have anybody in the room. So let's just go get as many of the from the bucket that we can get, right? And I think that's the difference this year is they're really trying to ensure that they have both the room filled with numbers, but also filled with some upside that they did not have this year. And if you look at their targets so far, that's exactly what they're going for with Justice Hayes. Ahmad Hardy has obviously proven production, but it was at a lower level school, what he could be, younger guy. All of these things check the boxes what they're looking for. So running back, while we saved it for last, it is certainly not last on the list of needs for Ole Miss and how they're attacking the portal, this portal cycle. One of two portal cycles. This one closes on the 28th. The second one opens on the 15th. Please, somebody fix this mess, because could you imagine, like Lane says, the AFC and NFC playoffs starting or not even starting yet, and free agency opens. It's bizarre. No one else does it this way. No other league in college football is the greatest sport in the world, and yet it has its postseason decided by old men in back rooms and window and roster construction while the season is still ongoing. It makes no sense. But we will be here all day, every day, not just to talk of champions here on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're checking us out, but on the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On 3. Sign up today for $1. Go to riverlandroofing.com. RiverLand Roofing sponsors us and does so much for Ole Miss in the name, image, and likeness space. Talking about paying the money that's bringing guys like Luke Haas here, RiverLand Roofing is one of those businesses. riverlandroofing.com for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297. That's the number to call. He's Zach Berry, Zach_Berry on the X Twitters. I'm at Spirit Ben. Come hang with us at the Ole Miss Spirit. We'd love to have you. See you soon, buddy. What?
I got one thing. I will say, you mentioned quarterback. I think I'll have a little bit more of a clear picture on that at some point this week. I think Ole Miss
well
is
teased.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, Austin Simmons is the guy. Let's not get it twisted. He's the guy, but Walker Howard's gone. They love AJ Maddox. They think that he is a potential star in the making. But like we said with running back, you got to have bodies. So I'll probably have a little bit more clear of a picture in the coming days on that. So stay tuned.
I will say, Ole Miss loved Walter White coming out of high school.
Walker, not
Walker. Shit.
Not
every time.
Not the meth dealer.
That's going to happen again. If he ended up being an Ole Miss Rebel, you know how many times like Breaking Bad references are going to be able to drop in these things. It's going to be great. Anyway, Walker White, Ole Miss loved him coming out of high school and obviously disenchanted after Auburn hilariously pulls Jackson Arnold over Mississippi State. And Michael Van Buren, who did some great things for State last year. I know the season was a miserable season. He is now going to back up Nuss at LSU.
I thought he was great.
I did too. I thought he was something. So things are happening in the portal. We don't cover those teams. We cover Ole Miss, and Ole Miss has got the #1 portal class, and it's only going to get better. They've been top 3 each of the last 3 years. That's not going to change as Ole Miss doesn't reload. It reloads. Yeah, it doesn't rebuild. It reloads, and that's what Ole Miss is doing now. The days of, you got to build it up for that one last dance year. That's not what this is. Ole Miss is reloading, and you're seeing it with the action already. The #1 portal class, and it's only going to get stronger. And we will be covering it all day, every day at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On 3. Thank you, buddy.
See you, man.